Welcome to the next episode of Change the Game, Not Africa podcast. My name is Nóra Végh. I'm the project coordinator at Foundation for Africa and also the manager of our current project, the development of a serious game on international development. My guests for this podcast are Mr. Mutombo, the head of Foundation for Africa NGO and the honorary consul of Democratic Republic of Congo, and Professor István Tarrósy, Africa researcher, international relations expert, and head of the Africa Research Center in Pécs. Mr. Mutombo is a citizen of Congolese origin who studied theology in Hungary. He has been successfully leading the Foundation for Africa for more than 20 years. Professor István Tarrósy is an outstanding figure in African research in Hungary. He has numerous publications and awards both in Hungary and in international academic life. In his research, he examines the geopolitics of Africa and Afro-Asian dynamics. So today we are going to talk about the role of games in the development of children in connection with our current project, the development of a serious game. As we all know, numerous studies show that playing games is important for cognitive development of children in the learning and applying of rules and strengthening community belonging. Playing games, divided into different age groups, also play a big role in child's development. For example, in early childhood, the playing of simple games like peekaboo, singing or reading, social games and board games play a significant role in the development of child's sensory, motor, and social skills, language development, and creativity. In school-aged children, memory games, brain teasers, and video games greatly contribute to the development of certain skills, such as critical and logical thinking or digital literacy. Adolescents can benefit from complex video games that require them to solve intricate problems and make strategic decisions. These games can improve their analytical thinking and decision-making skills. But what about Africa, and especially Congo? What we have seen there? Well, France.
Thank you very much, Miss Nóra, for this opportunity. And I think that playing games is a part of African culture, and it's a part of our everyday activities since children. Childhood, and we can find games in the family, we can find games at the school, and but I think that most of games that we can find which is available for everybody is the physical games where we can use our physical skills, running, and something like that. And we miss sometimes the games where we can find some scientific issues in those games to improve our critical thinking, our decision making, and we use more the games that we that can improve our physical skills, and we need more games where we can improve the way of thinking of children, for example, in this school, because sometimes the lack of literacy, the lack of technology, we don't have everybody we can use. For example, we have mobile phone, we have computer to use, for example, the video games. Those things are limiting the way of improving the game to develop other skills, logical thinking, critical thinking, and something like that. But we still use games in every area, and we can find some easier games like Dama or some local games also, where you can really strategical improve some such strategical thinking, but those games are really limited to some certain number of persons or classes of persons. Is not represented in all everything. And sometimes we don't have, for example, a kind of a circle in the school where we can teach that. We didn't um, convert our um, traditional games to the science, to put it in the curriculum, for example, to put it in the school where students can learn it. And it stay only in level of traditional, someone who can teach you at home and something like that. And this will not really reach a big number of children, and this kind of game will maybe have this big impact that it can has, because we don't bring it, for example, in the school. We don't develop it with scientific effects and other issues where we can really have a more impact in the society for those games. But the game exists itself, and we used to play, but we need to make it in large scale to reach more people and to develop that.
Thank you, Franz, for sharing your experiences from Congo. István, do you have the same experiences from the east of Africa where you carry out your researches?
Yes, thank you, Nóra, and I warmly welcome everybody listening us at this point. So I think this is a very important and intriguing topic, and I fully share what Franz started off with, connected to games all around in everyday life situations. But those are truly more of a physical type, yeah. Ball games, a lot of ball games, and everybody plays football, you know, or anywhere you go, any corner of Africa you go to, yeah, you will see a lot of different age groups playing football every day, everywhere. And also, of course, in the school premises as well, but at home as well. And much less, actually, of the other types of games. We are talking about the more serious games of this type, which might, you know, further those skills that we are talking about here, connected to cognitive abilities, talking about, the development of problem-solving attitudes. And no matter what kind of games we are talking about, certainly any of these, or each of them basically, would contribute to teamwork and kind of a strategic way of thinking about how to position yourself as an individual within the community, and how you can work together with, you know, your community members. So no matter whether you talk about a football match, you know, and your team over there, or you talk about any board game of that kind, yeah. So it's really about a more strategic kind of thinking, and obviously when we look into the board games and the more traditional games, that really can provide opportunities to develop these other skills, and among those you will find, especially for me, one of the number one issues is really thinking in strategies, a long-term kind of thinking, and then these games might teach you those. And at the same time, of course, when we talk about these traditions, it's keeping the traditions alive, and that is also important across African societies. Let's not forget, let me recall, and it's not only about East Africa, but everywhere you go in the continent. I can recall what former South African President Thabo Mbeki said: Africa, define yourself and then redefine yourself, believing in your cultural heritage, your traditions, based on which you can somehow rise, and then basically can figure out new strategies for yourselves. So keeping traditions alive, I think, is important. And therefore, I again agree from the East African perspective as well. And when we talk about that, I usually go back to Tanzania, Rwanda, Kenya, and Ethiopia. These are the countries from the larger East African macro region. Actually, I go back and have field work in. I can also agree with Franz in the sense that these traditions, these more traditional approaches, should be better integrated in school curricula, and then basically taken into the classroom situations, which is still not there enough, not in a sufficient manner. And of course, when we talk about these traditions, I can recall a very important game from Tanzania and Rwanda called Bao. It's a very, very traditional kind of Mancala type of board game. And then you have, of course, either, pebbles or you have seeds. And then, of course, in the board, when you play the board game, you have these 12 holes and then 48 seeds or pebbles equal distributed among the two players, between the two players. And then you have to capture at least 25 seeds or pebbles so that you win the game. But you have to really carve out strategies, how you can maneuver, how you can trick, how you can defend yourself, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I think all are true. And what is important here is really to integrate more of these traditional games into the school curricula. I fully agree with that.
Yeah. Just to add some thought to that what you are saying. How much the African community, African scholars made research about this kind of games and put it on writings and begin even to teach it and to teach the strategy by writing, because this is the science.
Exactly.
Until we didn't put it on writings, on papers, and we didn't make research, and even not development of this game, it stay in the level, in the stage of tradition.
Yeah.
And the tradition is always maybe give it through by month.
Word of mouth.
It's not enough. And okay, it keeps tradition, but it doesn't make it science. We need to make it science. Exactly. This kind of game that you are saying, it's a very, very strategic game.
Absolutely.
From Africa.
Yeah.
And where we can make it even worldwide game.
Yeah, exactly.
Why not?
Yes, why not?
It should be written somewhere.
Yeah. Exactly. More research is needed on that. And I am so happy that more and more so you will find very nice academic pieces. For instance, I read Rebecca Bayek's work, a very nice article from 2018 about these East African traditional ways. So yeah, more and more of this kind is needed for sure.
Well, thank you for both of you. One of our volunteer told us when she came back from her trip from Congo and Tanzania that she was amazed that in African schools she experienced the frontal education and often the chanting of the children and the joint repetition of the curriculum. But in contrast, the introduction of a project-based education can be observed in more and more places in Western Europe. This project-based learning means that the instructor does not give a lecture and doesn't explain. She just explains the task and offers a solution, but outlines a problem. So in this project-based learning, the children's skills like working in groups and cooperation, communication, presentation, these skills are strengthened. And these are the skills that they will need in their work. And in this project-based learning method, we can supplement it with gamification. So that's what we are doing right now in this project. So the teaching of a real-life situation is the aim of the game, and it can be developed in a serious game. And I wonder if France, have you received any feedback from your Congolese counterparts, the Congolese students, about how they can cope with the different type of educations, the different education methods, what they experienced in Congo and what they experience when they come for Hungary for studying?
Yes, they have some. First of all, I would say that African students, even they have learned in some very easier methodology, and I can say very old methodology, because the studies methodology or teaching methodology is improving, but we're still keeping sometimes the colonial way of teaching, where the colonizer came and they would like to give some teaching so quickly, to have some people who can write and read and to do some things, not think people who want to think. The more you think, the more you will be rebel, and you will make revolution, you know.
I want to get rid of the colonial masters. Yes.
Yeah. So, but this way of teaching, of methodology of teaching, stay until now, and we didn't improve it really. And the frontal teaching is a really old one. And when to improve this methodology, even project-based methodology, we need skills. We need materials to everyone, books, and what we need, everything we need for learning, that we don't have it in every African school, because people are poor, parents are poor. Still, you will find a school where we have only one book, which belongs to the teacher. So that's why the frontal teaching is the easiest and the very cheapest method to teach. But when they come to Europe, they must get a bit and adapt themselves to the Europe environment. And they are facing for the first time to this program how they can integrate to the Europe project-based teaching, where the teacher come just give a small kind of lesson, and you have to go to make research and to come with some results, and you have to work on the team, and they need more time to integrate and to get habit for this kind of method. According to our global talent program, we used to teach them before they come some academic skills, how they can make research, how they can make presentation from themselves, how they can fill out some form papers, because everything is online. So, and we use less book now. You have to make research in the internet, something like that. We used to teach them, to train them about this kind of skills, but they need to practice a lot. And when they come here, maybe they need after one half year to get a bit about that. So I think it's a little bit a problem, and but they get a bit so quickly, and then to catch up themselves.
If I may add, so when we talk about frontal education and whether or not that is a problem, as we are talking now here across Africa, as opposed to the European context, we have to be very clear in terms of which Europe are we talking about? Because yes, in general, the more Western corners of the European continent, this kind of methodology is basically non-existent. I mean, the frontal teaching methodology, and much more project-based, much more teamwork-based, much more cognitive skills needed, attributes you can attach to these, requirements. And then we, for instance, in Hungary, we have been basically struggling with our own immediate past, because when you look back to the Sovietized decades we had frontal teaching there. We were at school in Hungary during communism. We were taught in a frontal manner. So after the change of the political system, since the early 1990s, basically, we have been learning this new context of these various different methodologies from the other side of Europe and from actually the global higher education and education system, as I might say. So in that respect, I think it's just a way of learning, by doing at the same time, learning by opening up, and then learning by receiving a lot of input from the outside global space. So that's number one. So it's not only the Africans, in very generalized way, but other communities as well. For instance, in the more Central Eastern European part, have been also learning about those things. At the same time, we can say, and I can confidently say that, for instance, in Ethiopia, where I go back every year to teach at higher education institutions in the capital and in other parts of the country, I can see that there are a lot of good practices, a lot of really good experiences across African higher education, for instance, where already these more modern, as I say, global kind of methodologies are also implemented and used. So a lot of project-based work is expected from the African students themselves in a lot of African countries. I'm just talking about now, Ethiopian higher education. So I think it has been progressing, and most probably a lot of things need to be done in Sub-Saharan Africa when we look into that macro region. And the last thing I would add is that today, if you compare Africa of today with, let's say, the 1980s, where the question was whether there is a school that I can send my student to, whether there are enough schools in the region, as opposed to today. Now we can say there are a lot of schools available even to villagers. The question is quality, whether, and you already pointed that out, Franz, whether you have the new textbooks, whether you have the qualified teachers with the new methodological, skills they have, and then they can apply. And that is a big problem still. So I think teacher training is a crucial thing across Africa, and how to have more qualified teachers using this type of methodology, reaching out to a lot of young people across, and then applying them according to the new waves of education as such globally. So that's now the task for Africa, actually, to have more and more quality in the education sector.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for mentioning this divide in between the rural and the urban areas in Africa. Do you think, István, based on your researches and field experiences in these various countries, do you think that these games can make different influence in the cognitive development of children in the rural and in the urban areas? Do you think that these students have a different approach depending on where they live?
Obviously, where you live would determine, how you are socialized. Yes. And then, of course, when you live in rural areas, where all of your family members have lived in their whole life in the rural areas, and you are so much attached to agriculture, you are so much attached to, the everyday life situations in the rural areas. And I would need to add right away, with less let's say connectivity, let's say less access to things, as for instance in the big cities, but more and more so, because that also has been progressing because of a lot of new road developments, a lot of new school projects, and so on and so forth. But still, I think that is available and vivid in Africa. This divide basically between the rural communities and the urban communities. So certainly your socialization would contribute to how you can get these inputs, how you can get these skills, how you can develop yourself. But, and it's so nice, I really like this Mancala game I was talking about. Yes, in Tanzania, Rwanda, for instance, is this Bao. Yeah. And basically, I was telling you, if you have a board game of those 12 holes, yeah, but you can dig the holes in the ground. So if you don't have the board game, you can still play that in the rural areas as well, or anywhere you are where you can dig holes, and then you have the pebbles and you play exactly the same.
Yeah.
Plus, when you dig into the hole, you can be surrounded by so many other people watching you. Yeah, so it's even a more communal kind of activity.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I saw such a thing happening in rural Tanzania, for instance. So I think there is no difference in the sense of these traditional methods that can really contribute to improving your skills of this kind. The question is, and that's a huge difference in that respect, is access to other connectivities, other services. So yes, I would say those in the urban areas, especially those who do not live in the very outskirts, in the very segregated areas, in the very slums, because of course they have much less opportunities and much less access than those who can live in the better, neighborhoods, and therefore can go to better schools and so on and so forth, because they are from better families, better well-off families. So obviously there is a difference in that respect because of socialization. But no matter where you are, these games can contribute to your personal development. No question about that.
Yeah.
Thank you. And another difference can be maybe taken between boys and girls. France, based on your experience, have you recognized any differences on how games affect the cognitive development on boys and girls in Africa?
Yeah, this is a very, very nice question. The gender question, you will find it everywhere, in every situation, in every area of life. Of course, in Africa, really, the more you are going to the rural area, the more you see that the games, the task, the work, all is really separated for the boy and for the girls, for the men and for the women. So sometimes there is not connection, and some games is just played by girls or by men.
Yeah,
for example, Mancala.
Yeah.
I never seen the woman.
No, never. Me neither. That's so, right.
But now it's a kind of discrimination. I'm sorry to say that, but maybe one of the best Mancala player
can be a woman. You are right.
But they're discriminated, and women, they are growing in this area by thinking that this is the game just for the men. And this is a very big problem. And according to myself, when we was growing with children, we see that there was some common games, and there was games just for boys and games just for men, and it was really separated. And the problem is when we are talking about cognitive games, project-based games, where we can learn critical thinking, problem resolutions. This cannot be divided or discriminated, or it may be for everybody, because the problem solving is for everybody. And critical thinking is for everybody. So that's why I'm saying that. So we must redefine those games, and maybe the education authorities must take in consideration those kind of things, because maybe from the rural area, nobody will think about it. And how Africa want to develop the teachings methods, and how they want to develop the education, and how they want to integrate those kind of new skills, and of course to learn from other countries who already have this experience. As you said that 20 or 30 years ago in Hungary, we have the frontal methodology.
Absolutely.
And then you had to shift to the new one. It was a transition.
Absolutely.
And how we can learn about. And I think that in October we'll have an event here in Hungary about education, Hungarian African Week, and the topic will be education. I would like to see how we can learn to each other, and maybe to have an experience from Hungary, how they made this transition from the frontal teaching methodology to the project-based methodology. It can be a very good experience for many African countries.
I agree with that, and I think we really have to share this transition experience we have had and we have been experiencing still, actually, because there are a lot of experimentations, connected to how we can further improve it. Of course, it will not happen from day 1 to day 2. And I would still say that it's such a short period of time that we are still in probably day 3, but it's still a long way to go so that we really apply, the new methods that are required so that we can teach future generations in this manner and basically improve their cognitive skills or help them to improve their cognitive skills. One more thing connected to the gender difference. Certainly in this respect, your previous question is also relevant, because obviously much more gender differentiated in the rural areas than in the urban areas, because if you go to an urban school, a bit more kind of gender equality approach is utilized. Of course, I mean, it varies across the continent, but a lot of good examples you can see already happening in cities, in city schools. No matter where we are, you are totally right that Africans in general, need to convince their own governments to change the curriculum, and to integrate what we started off with, to integrate all these, traditional ways and means into the curricula, so that no matter where you go, rural school and urban school, you got the same experience, and therefore you can develop yourself. And that will then result in more participation of women in social and political life. And I think that is so crucial in Africa. Much more women are needed in government, much more women are needed in the parliaments. And there are very good examples, not just Rwanda, but many other examples where you can see much more women, more and more women who are capable of really contributing to social change in a different way than men used to be, And I think that must be further strengthened. And schools and school curricula modernized in this way can help.
Just an example of Congo now, we have the first, since the Congo exists as an independent country, we have the first woman prime minister.
Yes, exactly.
And we are waiting a lot from there.
Yes.
What she can bring as innovative.
Exactly.
Yeah. People are really, this will be the first experience.
Yes. And I really praise that it will turn into a good experience, which will propel more, and then really inspire more girls to get into politics, to get into, important positions, so that they really are the game changers. Talking about games, the game changers, right?
This will be civic game.
Yes, exactly, yes.
Well, we are coming to the end of our conversation and the end of our time, but let me ask you a very last question, because both of you are holding very responsible positions. You work a lot, both at home and abroad, but do you have time to play? And if so, then what games do you like to play the most, István?
Oh, yes. I mean, I play, and I always play. And actually, let me tell you, thank you, Nóra, for this question. I love playing anything that is connected to ball games. That is my passion. So basketball is one of my passions. And I have 2 sons, one turning 17, the other one turning 19. And every week we play basketball. And I was teaching them how to play basketball when they were 5-ish. So ever since we shared that love, for instance, connected to basketball. We have been following the big guys, in the North American League, and and so on and so forth. But all other ball games. So let that be table tennis, let that be volleyball. I always felt so much attached to them. And at the same time, I really like board games, and we play. Well, of course, when they were younger, because now they are, of course, in their teenage years. So the question is whether because I would love to play more with them, but the question is whether they want to play with me or my wife. And that's not always a definite yes. But sometimes we do share that, and we have a lot of board games and a lot of great family games, and we do love playing them, let that be a strategic game or a card game. So yeah. And the last thing is certainly, which I was told by my father, my dear father, that is, of course, chess. So I really have a kind of an attachment to chess, playing chess.
Yeah.
And how about you, Franz?
For myself, I can say that I missed the opportunity to play football with my son. It was a very not good experience because I enrolled him in a football team when he was 5 years, 6 years, but after the mother saw that she doesn't have the time to bring my son to the football, because I'm fan of football and I'm a very good football player. I would like to teach him, but he chose the handball. No problem. But I'm not good in the handball. And now he's playing basketball as well. I'm not also really fan of basketball, but we used to play strategic games like Gazdagoji Okoshana, I think, do business in white
in a wise way,
wise manner. And this is family games, and we love to play it with my children. Some cards games, and we used to play. And when we go to Africa, we played African games.
Of course.
Yes. And but those ones are more physical games, ball games, running, and and they like it really. Used to play with them. But sometimes I choose which kind of game we can play with children, but it works.
And you know what, Nóra? Let me just add one more thing. A fantastic game we shared together with France a couple of years ago in Kinshasa, Congo. Yes, DR Congo. And that was a big soccer match between Hungary and the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Yeah.
And actually, we were playing in front of about 2,000 people.
Wow.
And
Hungary won. Yes.
In which team were you, Franz?
Yeah, good question.
I was a foreigner player for Hungary.
Exactly.
Both with expensive, I don't know. Okay.
Thank you very much for sharing your experiences and your thoughts on playing, on gaming, and on how to use games in education. I really appreciate you spending your time with us today, and I hope that our audience also became interested in our game and will follow our project as it is evolving. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nóra, very much. Thank you, Franz.
Thank you, Nóra, and thank you, Mr. István.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.